This is the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
Welcome to this edition of What's the Score? Let me remind you, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please click the like button wherever you listen to this program. And if you'd like to support this and future programs, I encourage you to become a patron via patreon.com. There'll be details to follow in the middle of the program. We couldn't do the program without our patrons, so thank you. And enjoy today's wonderful podcast. Today's program made possible by patrons like you. Welcome to where we celebrate music from the movies. From the golden age to present day, we've got it all covered. We talk to those in the entertainment industry and find out about their favorite scores. You found the podcast, What's the Score? I'm your host, Frank R. Wilson. So sit back, relax, grab a popcorn, and let's see what we'll be hearing today. Recognize that music? Well, it's a favorite of our guest today. Our guest is, it's me, your host, Frank R. Wilson. Let me explain. This podcast, What's the Score, is about to start a new chapter in our evolution, if you will. We're now a very proud member of the Cinematic Sound Radio Network. It wouldn't have been possible without the tremendous support of everybody at the network, and I'm going to explain that. And I also thought that there might be some new listeners as a result of being part of that network, and I thought it only fair that maybe the listeners get a chance to know a little bit about me and my background and why I do the podcast in the first place. So that's going to be the purpose of this program today, and I will play some music, some favorites of mine that hopefully some of you will appreciate. Concerning the podcast, I've been doing this for about 6 years. I have about 120 episodes that are now archived on Cinematic Sound Radio. I was very proud of what I had done, but I also had recently discovered that I was just getting to a point where it was getting increasingly difficult for me to be able to put the programs together, and also some of the associated cost with being able to put the program on the internet. The feedback that I got from people was overwhelming. I was so touched by so many people that reached out and said that how much they loved the program and they were sorry to see it go away. Some of the people that contacted me, I was actually surprised they liked it so much, and they were very complimentary. But there were two people in particular that made a big difference. One was Eric Woods. Eric Woods, as you may know, is the founder, if you will, of Cinematic Sound Radio. And he's instrumental in getting me onto this network because he reached out and actually offered to have me join his network, which was a tremendous opportunity, and it was hard for me to ignore it. And so I jumped at the chance. He was very complimentary on the program and wanted to include it in the network, and wow, that really meant something to me, and I'm really grateful to him and the network for including me in their team. The other person that stepped forward was a good friend of mine from across the pond who also hosts a couple of podcasts. His name is John Auty. John is a musician and an author and a podcaster. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, I guess, if you will. And he was also very willing to kind of offer his help in putting programs together. And so once again, I was really touched by that and decided to go ahead and take him up on it. So basically now I have two, I guess you could say, producers that are going to help me with putting these programs together, both Eric and John. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So I'm delighted to be a part of Cinematic Sound Radio, and we'll be trying to come up with programs at least once a month, maybe twice a month, with guests I think you'll enjoy. Some from the entertainment industry, some that are, in the music industry, like composers or musicians, things like that. Guests that I've had before, as well as just super fans, people that are real fans of film score music, and quite frankly know a lot more about it and the composers than I ever will. And I love to include them in on the broadcast as well. I encourage you to kind of look through our archives if you are new to our program, because I think you'll see an impressive list of guests that we've had. In particular, things like composers like Bill Conti and Craig Safin, George Clinton, John Altman, all sorts of people that have contributed to film music through the years that were kind enough to give me their time and share some of their favorite music. Also actors, directors, and again, like I said, super fans. And I'm really proud of the archives that are available to you. And again, I encourage you, if you see a title that interests you, please click and download it and listen to it for yourself. I think that you'll enjoy it. So with that, I thought maybe before we get into sharing some of my favorite cues, I'd give you a little bit of an idea of who I am and why I am the way I am, I guess, if you will, and just give you a little bit of background before we get into the bulk of the program. As is custom on my podcast, I usually start off talking to the guest, ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves, and so I thought I'd do the same thing for all of you, to just kind of let you know a little bit about who I am and about a little bit about my life. I grew up in a Navy family, which basically meant that I moved about every 2 years, so I didn't have like one school that I could identify with or one town that I could identify with, and that actually was fine. I think that's a lot of how I ended up being defined. I was open to change and meeting new people, and so it was a good childhood. It was a good way to grow up. Now, when I was only 7 years old, though, was a very transformative period in my life. When we went to go see the movie Mary Poppins, the line was around the block at the cinema we went to, and my mom said, "Not going to see that today." And so we started to head home, and of course, being 7 years old, I was crying and making a fit, and as we started to drive, she saw another movie theater and said, "Oh, look, here's a movie called Goldfinger. Let's go ahead and stop and take a look at that." Well, we did. And I saw that golden girl on the screen, and I heard that music, and Odd Job getting electrocuted, and I was hooked, and I was hooked for good. And that's when I became a James Bond fan, and also, quite frankly, a film music fan as well. The years went on. I eventually started to go to college, and my dream at the time was to become a golf professional, someone you would take lessons from at a golf club or something, and actually kind of grew disenchanted with that after I worked at a club for 6 months. So went back to college and ended up studying psychology and management. And that's where kind of my career took me from there, because the bulk of my career after college ended up being in human resources, where I would design and facilitate seminars on things like management, sales, leadership, team building, work-life balance, all those sorts of different topics. And it actually took me all around the world. In the middle of that, I got married, ended up having a daughter in that time, and I brought them on my journey as well. Now, the fact that I lived in different parts of the USA is not only interesting and shaped me who I am, but because of the result of my career, I also ended up spending 4 years in Asia. I lived 2 years in Hong Kong and 2 years in Singapore. Perhaps one of the most glorious times in my life. I just thoroughly enjoyed that experience, and so did the family for that matter. It was really life-changing, and it's something I'll always treasure, having had that experience. When the time in Asia stopped, we ended up buying a bed and breakfast in Vermont and operated that facility for close to 8 years, and then ended up selling it in 2012, and that was to move back to Baton Rouge, which was where my wife was from and where I had roots, because I needed to come home and help to take care of my mom, who was aging. A couple of stints in HR followed after that, and then eventually, actually, believe it or not, went into acting. I had some success as a background artist and acting in short films and some independent features. Nothing that would set the world on fire, but it was something I thoroughly enjoyed and wish I could have continued, but I've pretty much kind of dropped out of that now. So actually with that's when I kind of started the podcast. I'm actually having a hard time figuring out when I did, but I want to say it was 2018 or 2019 when I started a podcast on film music, and I thought maybe that was just an area or topic that was really underrepresented, so that's why I thought I'd do that. And truth be told, I ended up modeling it on a program from the BBC called Desert Island Discs. So it was kind of that same kind of a concept where I would talk to someone about their lives and their careers and intersperse that with some favorite pieces of music of theirs. And so that kind of brings you up to speed as to who I am and telling you about myself. And now we can kind of get into the music part of it, if you will. It's no secret to my regular listeners that my favorite composer is John Barry. I know that won't come as a surprise to any of them, and there's a couple of reasons for it, actually. For one, I loved his use of melody, and he used melody a lot in his film scores. Now you might say, well, doesn't every composer do that? Well, I'm not so sure. A lot of what they do in the middle of a film is what Barry used to call cuey music. It didn't necessarily have any kind of a melody to it. It was still trying to communicate a certain mood or atmosphere or whatever, but there was no melody to it, and Barry really used that a lot. Now, that's not to say he didn't use cuey music at times, especially in action films, which is what he said he would. The Bond films kind of required that of him. But for the most part, a lot of times he did use melody. And I really liked that about him. He used to call himself a musical dramatist, which I thought was a very accurate description rather than calling himself a film composer. So I could go on and on about all the reasons why I liked him, but that pretty much kind of sums it up in a very simple way. And so, again, starting with Goldfinger, as I mentioned earlier, and all throughout his career, a lot of times it was melody that would draw me in, kind of that hook, I guess, if you will, to the music, where I would really notice it, and notice it sometimes because of how it would make me feel about what I was seeing on the screen, and to me that was really important. Now, let me give you kind of an unusual example. This cue I'm going to play is, kind of interestingly enough, wasn't used in the movie. When I heard it for the first time, I almost cried. It was just so glorious and beautiful. But I had no idea why it wasn't included in the film. And then there were some enterprising individuals on YouTube that actually found out where it belonged and put this piece of music to the scene in the movie that it was supposed to go with. The film was called On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, what was interesting was that when I saw that for the first time, the music with the scene in the movie, I had to admit, yeah, it didn't work. While it was a beautiful piece of music, for me at least, it was something that didn't really enhance the scene or didn't belong there. And so I thought actually it was a good decision on the part of the director to not include that piece of music. However, fortunately, thanks to Lucas Kendall and some other enterprising people that were able to find these unused pieces of music, we were able to hear it for the first time, and I just fell in love with it. And so I thought I'd share it with you today. Now, on the original 2003 reissue of the score, with some additional music included on it, I believe it was called Dusk at Piz Gloria. I think it's under a different name now with the more recent release of the film score. I don't have that in front of me, but nonetheless, some of you will no doubt recognize it. But if you get a chance, look on YouTube and see for yourself, does this piece of music actually work with the scene that it was written for? And so I'd be interested in what your thoughts are about that. So anyway, let's sit back and have a listen to this film cue from, again, the film On Her Majesty's Secret Service, not used, and it's written by, of course, composer John Barry. If you'll indulge me one more time, I'm going to play just one more cue from John Barry, and from the same film, actually, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and because I think it illustrates something that I feel very strongly about. It seems like, especially here, current day, modern era, I guess, if you will, film music is almost, wall to wall for the entire film, and to me it's overused quite a bit. A lot of times with action scenes, it's always enhanced with music. And sometimes that works and it's okay, but sometimes the action speaks for itself. But then sometimes there's something that's going on screen that's not very exciting, but there's an underlying tension to it. And so there's a great illustration of this in Barry's score to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which, by the way, many people, Barry fans in particular, think is his best Bond score. It's either that or Diamonds Are Forever, and I would tend to agree with him. It's between those two. But anyway, this scene really, I think, illustrates how music can enhance a scene that really needs it, because there's not a lot of action. You have a high action scene, sometimes it doesn't need all that music. It just needs the sound effects of punches or bombs going off or whatever. So anyway, I want you to listen to this cue, and perhaps hopefully you know the movie. The cue is called Gumball Safe. It's basically Bond breaking into a safe using a machine, I guess, if you will, in order to crack the code, the combination for the safe itself. And he's just kind of sitting down looking at a Playboy magazine, not doing very much. And so it actually needed music to enhance the scene, to enhance the tension that was building, because he was running out of time before the guy would return to the office. So anyway, it's another one of my favorite cues from this film, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. You could say it's got some melody to it, but it's also cuey, I guess, if you will. But anyway, have a listen to this. This is, again, from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. The cue is called Gumball Safe, and it's from the film On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Okay, enough of the love affair with John Barry. My listeners, regular listeners, will know I just can't resist. But I do want to highlight two other composers that are amongst my favorites and share an example of their music with you today. I guess you could say my favorite second composer is Jerry Goldsmith. And once again, for kind of the same reason that I thought he relied a lot on melody throughout most of his scores. The other thing I always found interesting about him was his interest in trying to create new sounds and using different kinds of instruments, and he was just very innovative in that way, much like John Barry was, especially early in his career, but this was something that Jerry did throughout his entire career, really. But the other thing I liked about Jerry Goldsmith, as well as John Barry, was their love of jazz music. And the cue I'm going to play for you certainly demonstrates that. This is going to be the end titles from the film The Russia House. Now, truth be told, I've never seen the movie. And how I stumbled upon the soundtrack, I don't really know for sure. But what I found interesting was how much I loved the soundtrack. And actually, listening to this end title, I almost feel like I know the story as told through music. It's just absolutely fabulous. And I remember I talked with one of the musicians that worked on this particular score. And he just talked about how he was told to just kind of go with the flow and make it work. Jerry kind of gave his musicians that freedom a lot of times, especially when it came to jazz pieces. Anyway, I'd like to play for you the end titles from the movie The Russia House. I believe it's called The Family Arrives. And of course, it's written by composer Jerry Goldsmith.
bringing you the very best music for film, TV, and video games. This is the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
We'll get back to the program in a moment. Let me tell you, I couldn't do this program without support from listeners just like you. When you press like or comment on a particular episode, it helps grow our audience. Now, admittedly, my audience is somewhat small compared to other podcasts, but it is growing, and I thank you for that growth. Now, how else could you help me keep the podcast going? Well, by becoming a patron of the program through Patreon.com. For as little as $3 a month, you help me keep the program going, plus you gain access to special bonus clips from our guests each episode. By being a patron, you could also end up being a featured guest on future episodes. So please consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/whatsthescore. That's patreon.com/whatsthescore, and what's the score is all one word. Your support is valued and appreciated. Please go to patreon.com and support us today. Thank you. I was first exposed to the music of John Williams back in the 70s with two films in particular that I remember, The Reavers and The Cowboys, that I saw as a young child, I guess, if you will. Really made an impression on me. And as the years went by, I was just amazed at the amount of original music that he had composed over the years. Both he and Jerry Goldsmith, I would love to know the total hours of music that they've composed, because not only were they prolific in films, but also wrote a lot of TV scores and TV main themes and things like that. Just an amazing career that John Williams had. In particular, I think I like a lot of his main themes, not so much the incidental music that he wrote, but I certainly loved the main themes that he wrote. But, the one I'm going to choose to play for you might be a surprise to many. One of the things I love about film music is the way it helps tell a story and the way it makes you feel on an emotional level. Action music is fine, and I love action music, don't get me wrong, and it certainly can enhance a scene, but boy, I tell you, when someone really hits the mark with helping to illustrate a scene and giving the emotional texture to it, it can be really powerful. And I think a great example in John Williams' filmography is the film Schindler's List. This film had just an amazing emotional impact, and I think it was really added to by the music that John Williams had written. With this amazing violin solo, it just takes my breath away every time I hear it. And I can see the scenes in that movie again just through the music itself. So I thought I would play the main theme from Schindler's List for you today as one of my favorite John Williams cues. And so I just ask you to sit back and relive the memory of the film Schindler's List and the music written by John Williams. Well, there you have it. Hopefully for my established listeners, maybe nothing new, but at least you've gotten a chance to know me a little bit better and confirm things maybe you already knew. And for those of you that are new listeners, and I hope there's many of them, hopefully it's given you a little bit of insight about who I am and what my program is all about and my preferences in music. But understand, too, that I love to play all film music, and my guests really choose lots of different composers and styles, and I encourage that, and actually I look forward to sharing it with the audience. So anyway, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you've enjoyed this kind of little introduction to my podcast, What's the Score? My thanks to my producer, Eric Woods, who helped put this program together today. And, we'll just look forward to sharing more episodes with you as time goes on. I've got at least 2 more episodes lined up here that hopefully will be released soon, and I think it'll be guests that you'll find very interesting as well as their music selections. So with that, there's not much else for me to say other than this. My name is Frank R. Wilson. My time's up. I thank you for yours. Thanks for listening to What's the Score?
Thank you for listening to the Cinematic Sound Radio Podcast. I want to thank Tim Burton for providing his voice for all the bumpers you hear throughout the program, and to David Coscina for providing Cinematic Sound Radio's theme music. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. You can find us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And wherever you're listening to us today, please take a moment right now to leave us a rating and a review of the podcast. You can get a Cinematic Sound Radio t-shirt at our TeePublic store. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/cinematicsoundradio. And don't forget to check us out on the web at cinematicsound.net.